guys, we've been looking at Vasily Kandinsky this week, and I've thought a lot about the kind of circles and dots that I want to work with, and I think I'm going to do a combination piece. You don't have to copy me, you can keep with your plans, but I'm going to show you how that watercolor resist is going to work with the oil pastels and my planning phase. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plan out my drawing. I'm going to divide some areas into squares with circles that are concentric circles, that means they're inside of each other, and some areas with circles that kind of reach out a little bit beyond the page, like Kandinsky did. Let's take a look at that in quick motion. Okay, I did my planning phase with a black Sharpie so that you could see what I was doing. You guys are going to do it in pencil so that when you trace over it with your oil pastels, it's not going to show up as much. To pretend like I did mine in pencil, I'm just going to flip my paper over it and make my lines a lot lighter. Now, I want to start adding in some of those really bright circles that Kandinsky was doing. So I'm going to start with yellow, and I'm going to do a small circle here, and maybe I'm going to do an outer edge of a circle here, and a really big circle over here. Now you notice when I'm doing my circles, I'm trying to keep them nice and solid. I don't want to let white show through. So if you see white, go ahead and make sure you fill that in on yours so that it doesn't let the colors merge too much. And I think I want this whole circle over here to be yellow. So move that back over. This one over here, I'm going to push really hard to get rid of all that white, because when we put our watercolors on here, we want it to push back. Then I'm going to switch to a really bright orange color. It's got a little green on it. Somebody else used it next to a green, I think. So I'm just going to take my scrap paper and kind of clean it off on my scrap paper like that. There we go. Now I'm going to add in some of my bright orange areas. Again, pushing really hard. I don't want the white to show through. Sometimes, oops, I broke. That's okay. I'm just going to put the other piece back in the box for somebody else to use. Make sure that goes there. And then I think maybe this one over here. I'm going to make this line orange. I like that there. That's cool. And then I'm going to do a really big orange circle over here. Fill in all of those white spaces. Okay, and you guys kind of get the picture now, right? Where I keep switching colors and keep adding bright things. I'm going to fast forward this so you can see what mine looks like as I keep working. Now that I've filled in all of those, I'm going to use a white oil pastel, and this isn't really going to show up until I start painting. So where I divided all of my sections here, I'm going to trace those with my white oil pastel. They're not going to show up yet, but they're really going to show up when I start adding the watercolor. So be careful not to touch any of my other oil pastels. I might have to skip some areas if I got too close to my border. Over there, and over here. And then if I want to hide some secret things that might show up in here when I start painting, this would be a good time to do that. So if I added like a wavy line right down here, can't really see it yet, but when we start painting, guess what's going to show up? Those are. Now when we're watercolor painting today, you guys have liquid watercolors. I don't have any of those at home, so I'm going to be using regular watercolors out of my watercolor palette. But when I'm telling you guys to pull them out of your liquid watercolor cups, those will be right in front of you. Remember, we want to keep our colors really bright and vivid because Kandinsky liked to use bright, vivid colors. When we use the water on top of the oil pastel is going to resist that water because oil and water don't mix. So I'm going to be careful to start painting along my line. You can see already right here where it's resisting, that's where I put that white oil pastel last time. See? Right there. And if I come down over top, and I'm pulling very gently on my brush. I don't want to push really hard. If you have to push really hard, it means you need more watercolor. So you can always go back over and pick up some more watercolor if your brush starts running low. The other thing we want to do today is not use the same color all the time. In between, I want you to make sure that you're rinsing your brush off. I rinse my brush off a lot in my water cup, but I started with red. Now I'm going to switch to yellow which when they mix together, of course, makes kind of an orangey color. But I'm going to keep changing my colors. Remember I had that hidden wavy line the other day? Look at that. It's showing up today because that watercolor resist is really working. I'm going to rinse my brush off again. I'm going to pick up even more yellow this time to make that color keep changing. I'm going to do some of it over here first. And then I'm going to do it up here because I don't want to do it right on top of this. It sort of matches. I want to make sure a different color goes there that doesn't match to make sure that it really shows up. What would be a good opposite color that could go right there? Let's see. I would think we could even do a little bit of red, straight red right there. Let's see what happens if we do that. Ooh, I like that. That really makes that show up. But my sun rays are red too, so I have to be careful that I don't get too close to those sun rays that are red. I'm going to keep those showing up as well. So what might I switch to? I think I'll switch to a little bright green just to put right here. There we go. Kind of a brownish greenish color. There. So now I have all of that area filled in. If there's any places that you think, well, that's a little, I'd like that a little bit darker, you can always fill that in darker. I'm going to grab some of my other color that was over here. And it's pretty light up here, so I'm going to fill this in with a little bit of a turquoisey color on top of that so it shows up more. There we go. So now I have a bunch of bright colors blended together over here. I'm going to start working on each of these sections now, and I'm going to keep those colors bright. I'm going to speed up the film so you can see what that looks like. I've mixed all sorts of colors together. I've done a wash where they're touching and they're blending into each other in all these different places. Now I'm going to move this to the drying rack and let it dry.